You do it at least once today. Maybe you already have, and you probably didn't think about it for more than 10 seconds. For most of human history, this wasn't a private, silent 10-second event. It was a decision, a location, a social negotiation, and sometimes a matter of survival. So what did going to the bathroom actually look like before toilets, before toilet paper, before a locked door gave you privacy on demand? The answer says a lot about how recent your version of normal really is. Let's start with the basics. There was no bathroom, not a room, not a fixture, not even a designated spot in most cases. For early Homo sapiens living in small mobile bands, waste disposal was simple. You walked a short distance from camp, away from where people ate and slept, and you went. No walls, no door, no paper. That's not guesswork. Archaeologists studying the Hadza, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups in Tanzania, have documented exactly this pattern. Anthropologist Frank Marlowe, who spent years living alongside the Hadza, described how they simply moved a short walk from camp, often behind a bush or a tree. No ritual, no shame, just a practical habit repeated every day. Why does that matter? Because it tells you something surprising. The discomfort, secrecy, and disgust so many people feel today isn't some ancient, hardwired instinct. It's something that got added later. Here's where it gets more interesting. As humans started settling into permanent villages roughly 12,000 years ago, something changed. When you live in the same spot for years instead of migrating, your own waste becomes a problem. Concentrated waste breeds disease, attracts pests, and contaminates water sources. This is exactly the trade-off researchers point to when discussing the shift to agriculture. Anthropologist James Sussman, who has spent decades studying the Zhuangzi San and writing about the deep history of human work, has argued that settling down solved some problems and created entirely new ones. And sanitation was one of the biggest. So let's reconstruct the scene. You're living in an early farming village, maybe 6,000 years ago. There's no sewer system, no plumbing. Waste piles up faster than in a mobile camp because everyone stays put. Some communities dug simple pits away from where they slept. Others just walked to the edge of the settlement. Excavations at sites like Skara Brae in Orkney, Scotland, a remarkably preserved Neolithic village dating back around 5,000 years, revealed something surprising. Small stone-built cubicles connected to a drainage channel running beneath the houses, one of the earliest known examples of built-in waste removal. That's the twist most people don't expect. You'd assume ancient people had no system at all, and for most of prehistory, that's true. But once humans settled down, sanitation didn't stay primitive for long. Necessity forced innovation fast. Fast forward to ancient Rome, and the picture changes again completely. Public latrines existed, long stone benches with holes cut side by side, and people sat next to strangers with no partitions at all. No stalls, no privacy in the way you'd expect. Conversation happened, business got discussed. It was, in a strange way, a social space, not unlike a modern break room, except everyone's pants were down. And instead of paper, many Romans used a tessorium, a sponge attached to a stick, rinsed in a shared trough of water running along the floor in front of the bench, and reused by the next person. Historians studying Roman sanitation, including work published on Roman latrine archaeology, have confirmed this shared sponge method through both written sources and surviving latrine structures across the empire, from Ostia to parts of North Africa. Picture it. 20 people seated in a row on cold stone, mid-conversation, using a communal sponge stick between them. No germ theory existed yet, so nobody understood why disease spread the way it did. It wasn't ignorance out of laziness. It was a complete absence of the microscopic knowledge you take for granted today. Move forward to medieval Europe, and things actually got messier, not more advanced. Many towns had no organized sewage system at all. Waste was often collected in chamber pots and simply thrown out of upper-story windows into the street below, sometimes with a shouted warning, sometimes without one. Streets doubled as informal drainage channels. This wasn't a rare, shocking exception. Historical records from cities like London and Paris describe waste disposal in the streets as common enough that specific laws were passed attempting to regulate it, requiring people to shout a warning before tossing anything out. Here's the part that reframes everything. We tend to assume that human history moved in a straight line from primitive to advanced, that each era was cleaner and smarter than the one before it. But sanitation didn't improve steadily. It went from simple and functional among small mobile groups to genuinely engineered in ancient Rome, to notably worse in parts of medieval Europe, only becoming reliably safe again with the invention of modern sewage systems in the 1800s. Progress wasn't a straight climb. It was a series of trade-offs and sometimes outright steps backward. So why do you feel embarrassed about something every single human who has ever lived has had to do? Some of that discomfort is cultural, built up over centuries of increasing privacy norms. But most of your ancestors, for the vast majority of human existence, treated it the way the Hadza still do, as a quick, unremarkable part of the day, requiring no special room, no special object, and no special shame. Here's the mirror. You live in a world with sealed plumbing, scented soap, and a locked door between you and everyone else, and it still makes you uncomfortable to talk about. Meanwhile, for most of the 300,000 years modern humans have existed, this was as unremarkable as breathing. No one apologized for it. No one avoided the topic. It simply happened, in the open, without commentary. The next time you walk into a private bathroom, close the door, and don't think twice about it. Remember that privacy itself is the unusual part. Your ancestors didn't have the walls. They didn't have the paper, or the plumbing, or the sponge on a stick most of the time. What they had was something simpler. No shame attached to a basic biological fact. You do it at least once today. So did every single person who has ever lived. The only thing that changed is how much you think you're supposed to hide it.